that you're happy with
Yeah,
everything that's being written down.
yeah.
But what I'll do is I'll be leaping a little bit from present day to distant past. But I was wondering if you could start off by talking about the recording process of the new single. So just in terms of, was it an idea of Sice or an idea that you had? How did it all come together?
Well, that particular song was one of Sice's songs. So obviously, well, you know the story that we we last met when it was his 50th birthday. So it was then, and we talked about it, and working on each other's stuff and so on. So the way we worked it really was Sice would send his demos to me, and I would take them, and then I would add lots of stuff to them, like the drums and to play along to, bass, keyboards, things like that. Then I would send it back to him and so on. So it was a back and forth thing. Well, it was all really, sorry, there's a fly there. It was all enabled by the internet, of course, and Dropbox and things like that. So it was back and forth there. So originally that was his song, So and then that process. Then once we knew we had a number of demos there, then I just found a bit of time and using our school as a place to record, where I work. And so we got Rob's drums done at the same time. Sice did his vocals. The first time we recorded, we did about 15 songs, which is probably too many at the time, to be honest. And then I went away and worked on them a bit more. And then at the same time, was working on other stuff that we were working together. So similarly, then any songs that I wrote, I would send them to him, and he would sing on them and make suggestions and so on. So it's really it's more collaborative than it would have been in the past, I would say.
And I know that Sice, I think, was using GarageBand at his place.
Yeah.
Are you also using GarageBand, or are you using Logic, or
no Logic? Yeah, Logic. So I mean, even when we recorded the drums, everything just went straight into Logic. And you were asking about the equipment or whatever. I have a Focusrite Claret 8 Pre here, but also have in school another Focusrite, the Scarlet. So between them, had enough inputs to record all the drums at once and so on. So just straight into Logic and take it from there, sort of thing.
And so, just have you been using Logic for the last few years?
Probably the last. God, I sound old. Well, certainly the last 15 years I've been using Logic. But when I was in the Boo Radleys, I would have been using Cubase. So I mean, we were doing sequencing and things like that back in the 90s.
Would you have used an Atari ST back then?
Yeah. Well, we had an Atari ST, and this very same Atari ST then was used by my wife now, but not wife then, to run Club Boo. She was the original person who ran the fan club. So
wow.
the Atari ST did a number of things, but certainly using the studio there didn't do much sequencing, but we did bits.
So if you've been using Logic for so long, I guess did you ever use GarageBand, or did you immediately start using Logic?
No, I sort of went backwards because I was using Logic. Well, to be honest, in between I was using this thing, in between Cubase and Logic, I was using a thing called Digital Performer. It's by Mark of the Unicorn, because I used to have Mark of the Unicorn interfaces and stuff. So I was using that, and then obviously I learned how to use Logic, but then I had to learn GarageBand to teach younger kids how to do it, if you know what I mean. So that's the only reason I went backwards to GarageBand. But I mean, GarageBand's brilliant. I mean, the fact that Sice could do his demos on GarageBand and send that, and I could import that straight into Logic was, a massive time saver. Like.
And so do you? I'm assuming you get on well with Apple then, in terms of like, I sometimes struggle because I love GarageBand and I love Logic, but I've always just been very familiar to the PC kind of Windows world. I guess you've been using a Mac for a long time, have you?
Yeah, because when the band finished, I was using PCs. I'll be honest, but I actually sold. I had a Moog uh, synth that we had in during the band, and I sold that, and I bought a Mac G4, the plastic ones, So it was bright blue plastic. So that
Yeah.
was the first one. So that would have been about 1998, 99 probably. So I was using Macs from then on, and just kept buying, spending lots of money
Yeah. Yeah.
upgrading. So I'm only on an iMac. I'm on an iMac now. That's what I've been using for all the recording and everything.
And so in terms of the how did you do the acoustics? Did you re-record the acoustic, or is it and was it like one mic on and so how did you do that?
The acoustics would usually use two mics, record it in stereo. Kept the acoustics to a minimum. I don't know, there's not that many on there, but there's a couple of fake ones on there too. Don't tell anyone.
Okay.
Sice had one on his demo, and I couldn't have played it anyway. Played the same part, and it just sounded really good, so I just kept that one. So just using two mics, and just capture it in stereo.
Okay, good stuff. And what mics did you use? Do you remember?
What are they called? Well, there were two that came with a pack of mics that we had in school for drum kits.
Okay.
So they were AKG 430s or something, little small ones that were supposed to be for the overheads for
Okay.
drums. Yeah, so we used them.
And so did you keep his original vocal, or did he do those again when he came to Northern Ireland?
Oh, well, he did them again.
Okay.
Just re-recorded all of them anyway, just to be safe, so.
Good. Was it difficult to get Rob to, because I'm assuming you started off with the demo, or did you re-record everything from scratch? So Rob's kind of providing the beat, or was Rob playing along to an original?
Well, the only way to make all this stuff work really is to use clicks, and everything's just in time. So I would have put drums on it just so I could play to it, and they would have been on it until Rob came along. So Rob just played to what was on there,
Okay.
And then when he'd finished his drums and Sice had re-recorded his vocals, go back and I would just re-record any bass or guitar and keyboards and stuff that I needed to do,
Yeah. I mean, Rob seems really tight. Like, it seems like, did he have problems playing along with the click, or?
No, he's always been brilliant at that. He's always been very good at that. Because we were doing that for years anyway in the band, because that was really down to Sice and Martin's laziness. So even we would play, as we were maybe the second half of the last 5 years of it, we would play to a click anyway. So Sice and Martin had just put their a quick guitar down, and Sice would sing it, and then they'd go and play hockey on the Sega Mega Drive or whatever, and then Rob would redo his drums, and then I would do the bass, and then we'd do the rest, because we never really played any of the recordings live, really. Any of the stuff that's on the albums, in the second half of it, you know what I mean? In the first half at the beginning, of course, we had no choice, but as we went through there, we sort of more played everything to a click anyway. And that meant it was just easier. You could add things in and out easy enough,
Yeah. And I mean, it's really well produced. I mean, it's really well produced, the new stuff. It sounds, it sounds really polished. Was there any mastering process that you went through, or mixing, or so was it all completely done in-house, or did you send it off somewhere, or?
No, it was all recorded and mixed by myself as such, and we did get it mastered at the very end once it's finished, So it was a process that took a very long time, to be honest. But that would be basically, it's been my hobby there. So I'd finish work after my dinner, I'd sit down, I'd mix something, I'd try to mix something, So actually, the other thing is a lot of it was done on these very headphones, because it would have drove my wife insane if she had to listen to those songs for 5 hours straight. So a lot of it was done on headphones, because I was doing it at night and you couldn't play it through the speakers, So, and I would just check them on the speakers, but each one probably took many hours, and then once I was happy enough with one of them, I would send it back to Rob and Sice,
Mhm.
via Dropbox, and they'd give any comments, and then I'd do it again, and then that's the process we went through really until they were
Yeah.
happy with it. So I'll be honest with you, it was very difficult. Found it very difficult to do,
Oh,
but very enjoyable. But it took many an hour to
it,
do, and
it's hard. I mean, it's incredibly hard work, isn't it? And I, I was reading an interview. I was listening to an interview with Noel Gallagher, obviously
mm,
label mate of yours, and he was talking about how Oasis, it was about the recording of What's the Story, Morning Glory, and he said they basically went in there and banged it out in a week or 2 weeks, like around
mm,
the studio with it half written and just banged it out. And he said something that I don't know, you might be able to relate to. He said he wouldn't be able to do that now. He said that's only something you can do when you're young, because now when you're older, you'll overthink everything and it would just be
yeah.
possible. Whereas when you're young, you kind of have that fearlessness. I guess you can relate to that probably.
I kind of bet, I guess. But like I said, like we spent like half of our career not recording like that, because we used to work from Martin's demos. So Martin would send his demos out, and they'd be on a tape, and then I would then already work out what I was going to play, before we got down there. But we never got together as a band like that and played songs. We only rehearsed when we were going to tour. So I would say at the beginning of the Boo Radleys, definitely that would have been what we did. We just went in there, heads down, got on with it, and recorded whatever. But certainly as we moved through it, it was more of it was a strange separate process where we all worked separately on it, if you get what I mean. So
So I think as I mentioned when we had our catch up, talking about marketing, I mentioned that it's really interesting to see that you're a band that has different periods that different groups are attracted to. So you have you have obviously the Wake Up Boo contingent, and then kind of the Giant Steps contingent, which is, its own thing. And then you have, Come On Kids and King Size, but there's also kind of, I mean, the kind of the rough trade loyalists, and
mm,
the everything's all right forever loyalists, and for them, that first album, the EPs, and everything's all right forever are the best thing that you ever did. That doesn't talk about that, and there's actually quite a lot of those people. Just wondering, I suppose musicians are kind of never disloyal to their children, the record they've played on. So you'll have affinity for all of them. But when you look back over the totality of the discography, do you feel affection for the different parts of that? And, do you still look back at those first EPs, the rough trade ones, and, it means something?
definitely, because that was the beginning of it all, and really felt like then that we'd made it. Even though we were just at the very beginning. Something like I remember them more vividly than probably some of the later stuff that we recorded, just because it was such a big deal. We had Rudy from AR Kane. He recorded Kaleidoscope in his studio. That was very exciting when we redid that for Rough Trade. But then we quickly got in with Alan Moulder as well, and that was a brilliant time because he was just so good at producing and mixing, and I have this vivid memory of Every Bird recording that, mixing that. Really, he was mixing it with Alan Moulder, and I thought, well, this is just it. We're just we've made it. The sound is there. It just sounds incredible, But then I think for me, we recorded Evidence Right Forever ourselves anyway. So that's when we'd moved into First Protocol Studios, off Benwell Road near Arsenal's ground. And then we were working with Andy Wilkinson as our engineer then. So we were recording that. And again, that felt like, oh, we're grown ups here. We can record ourselves, and to produce that record. And I suppose that the first disappointment was then having to then work with Ed Buller. And
Okay,
I
so so
found that very difficult at the time, because just his own methods and his own, it was very difficult to like feel like you were part of that process. He was someone who'd be very much like, he just wanted to get on with it. Because what I would have done throughout all of those records, when I would always sat when someone was mixing our records,
Mhm.
I'd have sat in the studio all day, every minute of the day. Whereas the others would maybe pop in and out because I was more interested in hearing it as it progressed and then hearing, how each of those producers or mixers or whatever we call them, produce the actual sound. So that's what I was really interested in anyway. I just remember the experience with Ed Buller being very difficult. Because
It's
we were in
an
a studio, one of
yeah.
the studios on Oxford Street, and
Mhm.
and just a vivid memory. I think, God, I hate this. When he was mixing it, but I mean, obviously, all the run up to it, I loved it. I thought the album was brilliant. I thought the
Mhm.
songs were brilliant. It was just the mixing of that when I felt very difficult.
It's interesting because obviously, the following year, he would obviously produce, for many people, the album,
Mm.
obviously the Suede album, um, which came out, and so I was really interested to ask, just seeing as he then went on to have that #1 album, and
Mm.
working with him kind of before I guess he got that recognition for the Suede album.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just his methods, and I didn't really get on with him personally. I think Martin
Yeah.
got on with him quite well. I just found it very difficult, and then I would always get frustrated, to be honest, when it came to mixing anyway. Um, you know, thinking, well, it shouldn't sound like that. And another
Yeah.
example of that would actually be Giant Steps, because when we recorded it, and obviously we had a great time recording that, it was all lots of experimentation, messing around.
Mm.
Really enjoyed recording that record and all the songs that we did record. And then when we mixed it, it just didn't sound right. And that strange thing is, so many people love that record, but all I can hear is that I can't hear Rob's drums. Rob's drums went from sounding like a normal drum kit to like some tiny thing, and part of that reason was they got swamped in guitar, which does make them
Yeah.
smaller anyway. But the other part, I think, was just you know Angeli Dutt, who again, she was a lovely person. We got on really well with her. She wasn't able to keep things like the drums present when there were massive guitars in there, which had been something that Alan Moulder could do hands down, no problem. When he was mixing, he would have, you could always hear the drums, you could hear really
Yeah.
loud guitars. I suppose he had more experience. I think in the ideal world we wanted him to do Giant Steps, but then he wasn't. By that stage, he was becoming very famous and very sought after. So we ended up with Angeli Dutt.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking as well that in terms of not being able to hear the drums, I think that was certainly rectified on Wake Up, because
Mm,
the drums are really prominent on Wake Up, aren't
yeah.
they? It's like from Wake Up Boo, but also Find the Answer Within. It starts with that. So do you think that was kind of on your minds when you recorded Wake Up, that maybe the drums hadn't cut through like you would?
I don't. Yeah, on my mind, I can't speak for the others to be honest, but I'm sure Rob would have liked to have heard his drums. But I mean, there's a lot of effects on Giant Steps, and I mean, a lot of guitar noise and guitar effects. It takes up a lot of space, so it's the reality is it's hard for the drums to come through some of that stuff anyway. But the other difference then was Wake Up. We didn't record Wake Up any differently than Giant Steps. We were in this. Other than we went to a better studio, which obviously had some impact on how things sounded. A much, much more expensive studio. But that, again, I think that was down to Al Clay. Like, he was a brilliant guy, really good guy. And just when he started mixing, he was able to bring the best out of it, you know?
Mhm.
Um, he was someone who knew how to have loud guitars and loud drums and bring
Mm.
all that together. So it was really down to his skill, I think, for Wake Up.
So, so obviously, so you, Sice, and Rob are very, very relaxed about this, and I think what's clear is that you're determined to have fun. You're
Yeah,
determined to enjoy this, and enjoy it as much as you can. So with that in mind, though, and talking about the discography, do you also kind of feel under any pressure at all? Like, and particularly when the single came out, did you think, this is the next part of, this is the next part of, of a really impressive and important to many people discography? What we do needs to fit in, as in needs to be that quality. It needs to be, it needs to be a Boo Radleys record.
Well, I certainly felt the pressure throughout. Certainly, recording and mixing, that was always in our minds, I think. Particularly mixing, because, to be honest, it was difficult to do on my own, but obviously only interacting with the other two, via WhatsApp and Dropbox, that way of doing it. But I think it was important that that the first record wasn't too far away from what the Boo Radleys sounded like anyway, But at the same time, I wasn't going to try and, pretend to be Martin and produce lots of loud guitars and, there's guitars on there, of course, but, and that wasn't just because he himself wasn't there, but I just think that the songs that Sice wrote and myself wrote, and we worked with Rob on them, is that they needed that space to be able to hear everything. So it was deliberate to not go mad with loud distorted guitars.
Yeah,
and actually the stuff we're doing for the the second album as such is actually a lot more guitar-y.
Okay.
It's just the way it's turned out. But, the first record, it was sort of the songs that were chosen in the end, those 11 that are going to be on the album or whatever, they're quite poppy songs. So they didn't really need tons of guitar on there, But, I mean, it was about having fun, and certainly delighted then with, the reaction, which on the whole was very positive. And I wasn't insulted if someone says, "Oh, that sounds like the Boo Radleys," because, I mean, of course we are the Boo Radleys, but I didn't feel we did the pressure that we needed to jump a million miles away from what the Boo Radleys sounded like, because of course the main components, I think, for a lot of people, of course, will be Sice's voice.
Well, I mean, it's in. Obviously, I had the pleasure doing a few acoustic gigs with Sice last year, the year before.
Yeah.
And I was just astonished that his voice is still what it was. I mean, and I remember when he started he came to my house, and we just recorded a couple of acoustic videos in Logic. And I just remember sitting in my bedroom, and he started singing, and I was honestly just like the teenage fan I always was. It was just incredible to me because he hits those high notes. It was still perfect. It was like there was no kind of, you would expect the range, or you'd expect some kind of decline, but I didn't able to notice any, which is amazing.
Well, I actually think his voice has got better. It's certainly, I would say, it's more richer than it was as well. I said, well, obviously you've heard the album, haven't you? So, I think he's got a great range on there too, and some of the songs where he's a bit deeper in that, his voice sounds really rich. And it was a moment that when I first heard him singing again, it brought it all back, the hairs on the back of my neck went up a bit. Because, I mean, of course, I've been listening to the Boo Radleys whenever I, get drunk or whatever on a Friday night, I'll always have a listen. But, to hear him singing live again, and, and what we managed to capture on those records, he's better than ever, I would say.
Yeah.
Better than ever.
Well, it's going to be, the gigs are going to be great. Are you looking forward to those?
Yes, well, same with the record. Looking forward to it, but also a bit terrified as well at the same time. But with the
caveat of,
Yeah, I mean, well, we have been rehearsing, and it's definitely sounding good. Yeah, but obviously we're not bringing 6 musicians like we used to do on tour and whatever. So, but it's sounding good. Very much looking forward to playing live, because even the rehearsals, we didn't need to rehearse, but just felt we needed to do it in terms. I certainly wanted to get over the nerves and the questions of whether we, what this was going to sound like and whatever. But no, very happy. things going well.
So on the subject, so one second, no, it's too dark. On the subject of extra musicians, did you and the rest of the guys play on Ed Ball's album, or was it just played on? He obviously was your live keyboard player.
Yeah, well, I played on some of it. I know Rob played on some of it. I think Martin played on some of it too. Yeah,
on Catholic Guilt.
Yeah, I played some double bass on something. I
Okay.
played, and I did his live show. It was with him as well. I think Rob did that. Me and Rob, and Andy from Rides played the guitar. Did he?
God, I had no idea it was a super group of that nature.
Well, and then of course, Haircut 100. What's his name? Oh my God, just gone out of my head. He was there at that gig. He played at that gig too. Ed's gig. Yeah.
Right.
That was, I can't remember the club in London.
I love,
funny old club.
That tune of his, the Mill Hill Self Hate Club. That's a great tune. It's really, really good. Really
well, he was a character and a half, Ed. Jesus, I wouldn't even begin to tell you. He's a very complex person. He used to upset me every night as well because he used to trash the keyboard every night, And
yeah, of course.
We were actually going around on tour with bags of keys for the keyboard, so to replace all the keys he broke the night before and everything. That used to, I don't know.
God.
Because I was doing all the keyboard programming, like all the sounds and everything, so I had to work with him. And then he'd trash the keyboard, and then the next night we'd have to put loads more keys on. But
just to so let's just get in the time machine and go right back to the beginning. Did you start off playing guitar and then switch to bass, or how did you pick up an instrument in the first place?
Well, when I was very young, I wanted to be a drummer. That was the first thing. So I used to walk around the house drumming on things, and then I actually learned to play keyboards. I wouldn't say it was the piano because my dad had one of them family organ things with the beats and everything. So keyboards was the second thing, and then I learned guitar, and actually my brother taught me a fair bit of the guitar as well. My older brother, he was playing guitar, so he had an electric guitar, so he taught me. So I was playing the guitar, and then I was in. So my first gig was when I was 15, and I was in a band with a fellow from school and a couple of other people, and we were a very strange funk jazz thing. Whereas I was playing guitar, but then we used to do New Order as a cover, used to do a New Order cover. And so that was my first band. And that was at that same time then Sice and Martin were starting their own band. Yeah. So it was this club in New Brighton we played in. We were only 15, but it was a nightclub thing. And so they asked me after that gig, would I play bass for them? So that's how I ended up playing the bass.
Okay.
But I actually enjoyed it anyway. I'd been playing the bass. I wasn't upset I was on bass. I wasn't pushing to be put back on guitar or anything. I enjoyed playing the bass.
Yeah.
Different thing.
And in terms of gear, like was there a particular bass that you played in the booze, or did you have like a number one bass?
Yeah, it's this one over here. Hold on. That was a bit later on, but this was the one that did everything else, really. It was about halfway through. We got that to Gibson.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like, got that Gibson. But before that, I just played all sorts of cheap, nasty basses, But once I got that one, that was it. Played that for everything.
Where did you get that?
We got a deal with Gibson. So Martin he got that lovely semi-acoustic guitar that he had.
He got, or?
Yeah, whatever he got. And so I got that. So the deal was we got them half price, That was about it. But so that's when I got that. And that, if you ever look up that bass, the people who play them look atrocious, and they're all like country and western people. Because there was only 500 made of it for some reason. But so that's when I got that one. I've always had different basses as spares. I had at one stage I had a Burns bass as well, which I ended up selling. And we had some other deal with Blade, because Martin and Sice had Blade guitars, and I ended up with a Blade bass. which
Mhm.
they were very boring guitars, but they stayed in tune. So I got rid of all of those, and that was all I was left with. And actually, recently just bought that one as well. I just like the look of it. That's the
Okay, nice.
Epiphone Jack Cassidy or whatever. So that was it. So now I actually get back to having two basses. Since I just got rid of that and all my gear as well. So all my bass amps and everything I got rid of, sold them, you know.
Well, at least
Have room for them.
at least you've got a backup for tour anyway.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
Good tour.
that's brand new. I've only I've played it on a couple of things now, but I haven't really even got playing it properly.
Just so, how long have you been living in Northern Ireland for, Tim?
Well, this will be the 17th year. 17th.
Right. Okay. Because you studied, you got your degree from Liverpool, didn't you? You studied in Liverpool, and then was it shortly afterwards that you left, or you did some because you did some teaching in the Wirral, didn't you, or on the Wirral?
Yeah, but that was literally I finished my degree and got a job even before I got my degree in that summer, teaching in a school in Birkenhead. And then a job came up, so I applied for that and got that. So I taught for just 1 year in England, and then moved over to Northern Ireland because my wife's from Northern Ireland. So,
right. Okay.
And her dad had died, so she wanted to move back, be closer to her mum. And our Niall was born then, I'd have to say, and our Daniel, well, they were both born, the two kids. So they were 3 and 5. So then we moved over about 17 years ago, and I got that job in the school I'm in now. And that was a palaver because you had to fly over for interviews and stuff because we were still living in Liverpool, and my interview was at 7:30 in a pub, and everyone thought that was hilarious and everything. But thank God I got it because my wife's a teacher as well. She's been teaching longer than me anyway, a lot longer than me. So it's good that we're both teachers anyway.
And so Liverpool then, and I guess one of the interesting things about the Boo Radleys is that, a band from Liverpool, but never a Liverpool band in the sense that, like, as a fan, it was, you weren't, I mean, it's an interesting one because obviously, you love the Beatles and Sice and Martin openly spoke about how important the Beatles are. But you weren't part of a Liverpool scene, and so I guess so in terms of your relationship with the city, it's like, you obviously you would have been around the same time as you started off the same time as the last were obviously starts as well, weren't you? So a similar time, and again, you were never part of any Liverpool scene, I guess.
Well, they didn't really accept us because we weren't from Liverpool. They said that a lot to us. And they hated us. If you met someone from a band and the Melody Maker had said Liverpool band, the Boo Radleys, they'd be very upset about it. We weren't claiming we from Liverpool, but at that time, me and Martin were living in Liverpool anyway. We moved to Liverpool quite early on. I think I was 20 when I moved to Liverpool, or 19, and he lived in the same house as me, and that was also the same house that Steve, who did the covers for us, lived in as well. Do
you remember where that was?
It was 58 Huskisson Street.
Okay, a good Liverpool address.
Yeah, well, I took my kids to see it. It was a great address, brilliant house back then. It was like a bed set, So I was in the middle floor, Martin was on the ground floor, and Steve was on the floor above me. So we were all at one side of the house. So we had some fun there. And actually, my wife lived the next road down from us, going a bit further towards Toxteth, so she only lived around the corner anyway, So when I stayed in Liverpool most of the time. It was only the 1 year I moved to London with Martin. We lived in Tufnell Park for a year, but otherwise I was in Liverpool. But actually, by the end, I'd actually moved back over when the kids were younger. Moved back over to the Wirral, But it's very strange. We weren't really accepted by anyone, and certainly, we didn't sound like the Beatles. and certainly bands tended to sound like the Beatles or like the Rolling Stones, or they were quite jangly, or soul-y or whatever, or R&B or whatever. So we didn't sound like any bands in Liverpool. So that's really
Yeah.
why we ended up playing a lot. We just played indie clubs and that, and we played that club Planet X an awful lot in Liverpool.
It's funny. I've just saw the other day that Will Sargent's got an autobiography out.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
and there's a photo of him looking incredibly young and cool on the front. And I thought I'd be quite interested to listen to that. Did that part, did that scene, the Bunnymen, the Teardrop Explodes, Riley, that, Bill Drummond, was that in your mind? Was that kind of part of the city's legacy that you appreciated, that might have informed what you did, or not really?
well, definitely the Bunnymen. Maybe not, because my own knowledge, Martin would have had a better musical knowledge than me. Like, but my own knowledge was, I loved the Bunnymen. When I went to see the Bunnymen in a pub in Liverpool, like they actually played behind the bar, and it was just a tiny room, and I just thought they were amazing. So I did love people like Echo and the Bunnymen, and Julian Cope, I liked him. But maybe not some of the others you mentioned there. Didn't really figure,
Mm.
So it was very strange then years later for Ian McCulloch to be playing Extra Fiction and supporting us in Liverpool. That was very strange indeed.
I was at that gig. So I was at that gig.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, and I was 50.
Who was the other band? Was it Cast?
Coast.
Cast, was it?
Coast. Coast, yeah.
Yeah.
Cast plus VO.
Yeah.
And I remember being astonished that for £8 we got the Boo Radleys and McCulloch and Will Sargent. I was like, that's amazing.
Very and I know good. A lot of their fans weren't happy that we were on the top of the bill. I can tell you that. I could hear them.
So I've asked Sice about this. I in order to persuade Sice out of retirement and come and play at the Jericho Tavern, I sent him a "I'm your biggest fan" email, in which I shared about I shared about attending the Avenham Park gig that you had in Feston, the Heineken Free Festival.
Oh yeah.
And it was amazing because obviously Oasis were supporting you, and I queued up to get your autographs, and you did a signing.
Right.
But it was quite nice.
I don't remember that, but
I mentioned this to Sice, and he shared a nice memory about you playing football with Oasis in the park before the gig. Yeah. I'm wondering, do you have any memories of that Avenham Park gig at all?
Well, I certainly found them all a bit intimidating, I'll be honest with you, because they were very large lads and they were living it large. But they were nice fellas. I just remember watching them and thinking, why the fuck are they on before us? I mean, they were incredible. And you knew it. And they would, for that kind of venue or that kind of, basically like a festival type vibe, the kids were going to love that. And then obviously we came on with our awkward indie sort of stuff, and I thought, Jesus, they're not going to enjoy it. But obviously there were Boo Radleys fans there. But I mean, and there was another time when they supported us at this radio thing in Glasgow. It was like, I forget, I think it was like, I can't remember what it was called, Radio City or something. They supported us at that. And you just knew they were going to be massive. And that we went, you know what I mean? They were just so brilliant, like amazing. But they were great people, they were great people.
Good stuff. Yeah, good stuff. No, that was like I say, that was one of my first ever gigs. I think it might have been the first ever gig I went to. Yeah.
And that was where did you come from? You don't come from Preston though, do you?
No, I'm from do you know Hightown? It's just by Formby.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, so Hightown is just by Formby in between Southport and Liverpool on the northern line. So it's, yeah, so a similar thing to you. It's like you go to Southport, like, so Hightown is basically, it's your furthest possible location to still be an 051, still have 051.
Right, yeah.
Whereas you go to Southport, you know, and they'll give you shit. And you go to Liverpool and they'll give you shit for being posh.
Yeah.
But as a friend of mine said, once you go south of Chester, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
in terms of Liverpool, yeah, Liverpool regional politics.
And also the accent changes. You can go 2 miles down the road and there's a completely different accent. It's a crazy place, like. But
Yeah,
I mean, it's all about the connection to Liverpool. My 2 children are there, like, you know. My oldest son is doing his masters there, and my youngest son, he's doing his he's going into his 3rd year of his degree. So like we're over there a lot anyway. Never mind, my mum and dad are there, but I would go and see the kids a lot, you know.
that's great. So well, I hope there'll be a Liverpool gig out of the ones that you'll be doing.
Oh well, can only hope.
Yeah,
can only hope. See how it pans out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tim, that's been absolutely fantastic, mate. We'll leave it there because
Right.
I've talked about what I want to talk about. So what I'll do is I'll type this up in the next week or so, and then I'll send it over to you just so you can take a quick look at it before I whack it on the website. But absolutely brilliant, and congratulations once again on the single, and obviously the album, but the single, it's just, I hope you've been reading the YouTube comments and stuff, because it's really hard.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. No, I have. I've been reading all of them, to be honest, because of course there's this other group called Booth Ever on Facebook. They can be quite negative, but then you read all the stuff that's people commenting on Twitter, on YouTube. You're back.
Yeah, sorry, my internet connection suddenly came up as being unstable, but
right.
But I didn't. But I'm glad that you've been that you've seen the love that you've been shown. It's great.
Yeah. No, it's just great to see, to be honest. Yeah, and certainly the positive comments outweigh the very few negative ones that are out there. Like, but it's just great to see that those people still love the band.
Yeah, it was great. There's quite a few kind of little, like, a few people write things and like they tag in Martin as if they're trying to get him to respond, and I'm just like, it's like almost like snitchy kind of grass. Like, you kind of think, well, I know who you were at school. Do you know what I mean? I know, you see that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I guess that's just social media, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, on the whole, very positive. And thanks for all your work anyway, Jules. You did as well. Just got an email from Spotify then, literally when you went off, to say it's 8,500 in 1 week. Well, that's not bad. But 8p.
It'd be 8p, but that would
8p.
At certain times that would be that would probably be a top 40 placing. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
But
no, it's been really good. I'm just back in the day. Certainly looking forward to getting the rest of the stuff out, to be honest. Like, such a good range of songs on there too. I mean, that's a brilliant song. I thought that was a perfect song to start with anyway. But impatient and want everything out quickly.
Yeah. Well, when it does come out, we'll do another one of these, and we'll go in depth on some more tracks. That'll be great.
Yeah, That'd be great.
Superb, Tim. Well, listen. You have a happy evening. You have a peaceful evening, and
You too.
I'll look forward to speaking to you again soon.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Excellent. Take
See you
care.
later.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye. Bye.